my home, where I built my life, and you're sitting here telling me I should just hand it over like it's nothing. My dad sighed, clearly frustrated, and decided to jump in. We're not asking you to give it up forever, he said, as if that somehow made it better. Just think of it as helping Savannah get back on her feet once she's stable. Maybe she can move out and you can figure out something else for yourself. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. For everyone, I snapped. No, you're trying to do what's best for her. Let's not pretend this is about the family ordoing what's right. This is about you bending over backward for Savannah like you always do and expecting me to clean up the mess. Guess what? I'm not playing along. Savannah's mom narrowed her eyes. It's called being part of a family. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good. If your mother were here, she'd interrupted, my voice cold. That you dare bring my mom into this? She left this house to me because she trusted me to take care of it. She knew exactly how you'd behave, and that's why none of you are even mentioning her. Well, so don't sit here and tell me what you would have wanted, because you have no idea. They didn't say anything to thwart me. Dad looked uncomfortable and went to do something else. Savannah just sat there, arms crossed, with that same smug expression. It was clear she thought edge of, and eventually she didn't even try to argue or defend herself. Just let her mom and my dad do all the talking, like she was above having to justify this ridiculous demand to her. It wasn't a negotiation. It was just a matter of when, not if they'd get their way. But this time they were messing with the wrong person. This house isn't for negotiation. Me mom trusted me with it, and I'm not about to let them guilt me into giving it up. Still, I could tell this wasn't the end of it. They left the conversation open-ended, like they were expecting me to change my mind, but I didn't. I thought maybe they'd cool off and realize how ridiculous the whole thing was after I explicitly said no in their faces. But it was just the beginning. My dad and his wife seemed to think persistence was thicky, like if they kept bringing it up, I'd eventually cave. It started with small passive-aggressive comments my dad would call and casually ask if I thought more about helping out his wife, texted miracles about the importance of supporting single mothers, as if it suddenly feel enlightened, and offer up me home. Savannah stayed quiet for the most part, but I could tell she was confident her mom and my dad would handle everything. Then they upped the ante. They started showing up and announced it wasn't like they were coming over to visit, though every time they came, they'd find some excuse to bring the conversation back to Savannah and her needs. One time, my dad showed up with a box of baby clothes for storage. He walked in like it was the most normal thing in the world and asked where he could put. I told him he could take it back to his house. He gave me this look like I just insulted him. It's just temporary. He said, you're not even using a guest room. I told him the guest room wasn't for storage. It was for guests. He grumbled, but eventually took the box back to his car. That set the tone for every interaction. After that, they'd bring up some solution that involved me giving up my space, and I'd shut it down. The thing is, I could tell they didn't see me as the actual owner of the Hasido. Them, it was just a convenient resource they could use however they wanted. My mom left it to me, but they acted like it was still up for grabs, like I'd just been holding it for Savannah until she needed it. What really pissed me off was how they framed everything as if I was the selfish, when they made it sound like I was just sitting on this treasure trove of space and refusing to share it out of spite. It wasn't enough that I said no. I had to justify my decision over and over again to people who didn't want to hear it. Things escalated when Savannah decided to insert herself into the situation more aggressively. One afternoon, she rolled up to my house, popped her trunk, and casually asked me to help her unload a stroller. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind and asked why she was bringing a stroller to my house. Well, where else am I supposed to put? I didn't have the room right now, she said. He was trying to process the sheer audacity of her statement. Not my problem, I replied, already feeling the frustration building. That, of course, triggered her. She launched into this self-centered rant about how I was making things so much harder for everyone, as if it personally created her problems. Familias supposed to stick together. She sighed as though that somehow justified dumping her issues on me. She continued, you don't understand how stressful it is, Tobe, in my position. You've got no idea what it's like to have a baby on the way, she added with this tone that suggested I was some clueless idiot who couldn't possibly comprehend real life. She was right about one thing. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant, but what I doc know is what it's like to have responsibilities, and unlike her, I've been handling mine without expecting anyone to swoop in and fix everything for me. More importantly, I don't demand to sit in other people's houses just because I don't have enough space. So I told her point blank, Your problems aren't mine to solve, and I'm not about to turn my life upside down just because you refuse to figure out yours that did not go over well. Her face twisted into this look of pure hatred, like I just told her the world didn't revolve around her, which, let's be real, I basically did. She stormed off in a huff, but not before throwing one last gem over her shoulder. Going to regret this someday. The irony of her whole tantrum wasn't lost on me. She'd spent her entire life being coddled and catered to, and now, for the first time, someone wasn't bending to her will instead of. Realizing how absurd her demands were, she acted like I was Theon being unreasonable, bringing a stroller to my house, assuming she'd just park herself and her baby here, was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen. It was like she genuinely believed my house was already hers, and I was just an obstacle to be removed. It didn't stop there. They just kept pushing my limits. The other day, my dad came over with Arielter. He didn't even tell me. He was coming. I was sitting in my living room when I heard the knock on the door. I opened it to find him standing there with a woman holding a clipboard. At hot, we could look at some options for you, he said. I didn't even let them inside. I told them to leave and slam the door. That was the last straw for Mike. Was clear they weren't going to stop until I did something drastic. At that point, I knew I couldn't trust them anymore. It wasn't just about the house site, it was about the principle. They thought they could bully me into submission because that's how things had always worked with Savannah. But I'm not Savannah, and I don't roll over for anyone. That